Longevity. It's living a high-quality life while living longer than the average life expectancy. Have you noticed that certain people can actually outlive their peers, turning like 90 or 100 years old while they're happy and they're healthy and they live independently and they're highly productive people? Do you ever wonder what their secret is? I know their secret. Science speaks of things like movement and social and emotional well-being and mindset being the secrets to growing old and growing to a point where you're happy and healthy. But these centenarians, they have a secret. These centenarians can actually look through this secret lens and they view life differently. It impacts them greatly. They're able to boost their relationships with people. They're able to find self-happiness. They're able to find that spirit inside them that gives them that willingness to live. And it helps them and gives them the ability to face life's challenges. Have you ever wondered if longevity is part of your future?
I want to share briefly about a man in my life that I know has lived to be 95 in the way that he chose to live it. He was born in 1930 in Texas, in West Texas, during the Dust Bowl. Not only was it the Dust Bowl, for you that don't understand the Dust Bowl, it's when the wind blew excessively and also blew dirt and dust in, and it was everywhere. They grew up poor, so they were like sharecroppers. They did not have a hard floor. They had to grow up on dirt. I know that sounds crazy today, but it's just the way it was back then. And you're also during the Depression. My grandfather made $1.50 a day driving a tractor 12 hours a day. But my uncle decided as a young man, he and my dad decided that they were going to get out of that situation. My father jumped into construction, as did my uncle. My uncle became a very successful businessman, but it's not that he had a positive attitude, it's that he had a can-do attitude. So, this is a man who is now 95. What's interesting about him is that I asked him a few questions. Number one, I said, what do you do as you age and you lose friends? And you know what he said to me? It was so simple. He says, I make new friends. I said, well, do you ever reflect and think about the past, the good old days, and how you could have done things and should have done things? And he looked at me straightly and said, never. He said, my key to success, and of course he wouldn't say it this way because he had a 7th grade education, self-made man, still going hard today. But his key to success is a place to drink your coffee, somewhere to go, and be able to put your own socks on. He decided at 85 to start flipping houses. He's 95 today. He's flipped somewhere around, I think, 18 houses. But here's the most amazing thing about it. It's not that he flips houses, it's that he carries the paper. In other words, he carries the mortgage for the people. He carries a 10 to 15-year mortgage. So for the houses that he built at 85, that mortgage comes due when he's 100 and plans on getting there. So it's a can-do attitude. It's about reinventing every single day. And if you lose a friend, you go make a new friend. And life's an adventure, and that's how he sees things. Still drives. And I tell you, he is an amazing man. Someone else I want to talk about that changed the industry of working out. A lot of us don't realize it, but it was Jack LaLanne. And I remember Jack LaLanne as a kid. He would come on and he'd say, go get your parents. And he had this jumpsuit thing and he wore these ballerina shoes. He was kind of weird, but it was in the 50s. Jack LaLanne invented a few things. He saw the benefits of working out and being in shape. A lot of people know him for Jack LaLanne's juicer. But way before the juicer, Jack LaLanne had such things as the Smith machine. He came up with the resistance bands. He also came up with energy drinks, energy bars. The current gym today, and some of the techniques that people are talking about today, Jack LaLanne did this way back in the 30s and 40s. Jack LaLanne, he says, if man created it, don't eat it. So he did lots of fruits, vegetables, for example, lots of fish, whites of eggs. He was just very careful, ate twice a day. At 70, there's all these feats that he did in his 40s, 50s, and 60s. But at 70, he decided to celebrate by, and I believe it was, he like pulled 76 people, I think a mile and a half while handcuffed and shackled on his feet underwater. He pulls 70 something boats or some crazy number. He would do like 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups and chin-ups. But back then he didn't know that you were supposed to have gloves like we have today. So all he did is he would grab the bar, and the reason he had to stop doing chin-ups is because his hands were bleeding so badly. Jack LaLanne lived to be 96 years old, and he says, if I die, it's going to hurt my reputation, so I can't do that. Funny story about him is he worked out every day, 7 days a week, 90 minutes of weight training, and then 30 minutes of cardio. A lot of people don't want to do cardio, but it's something that we should all do. Before the sun gets to me, let me just finish this last point. He died of pneumonia, and because he wouldn't go to the doctor. He had had pneumonia for a week. He worked out 2 hours before he died the next day at 96 years old. So is it a positive attitude? I don't know. Both these men had a can-do attitude. Maybe that's the attitude we need. I talked about Jack LaLanne and my uncle. Jack LaLanne is 96, and by the way, his wife is 99. She's still alive, and they call
still
her,
exercising.
they call her, I think she was the queen of fitness or something like that. Then I spoke of my uncle. But you had a couple of people that affected you, which was Carol Burnett and Dick Van Dyke, and then your mother.
Mm-hmm.
So fill us in on because I think Dick Van Dyke's 99, and Carol Burnett's 92, and they're still working and moving forward. So anyway.
Well, these three people had a great influence in my life, of course, but it's what they're doing now. So Carol Burnett and my mom are really close in age, a matter of months apart. And Dick Van Dyke is 99. So we're talking about, close to centenarian age. It's what they're doing now. But
I mean, to make it 100.
I love their can-do attitude. I love the fact that they look forward to opportunities in life. They don't look at the bad things. They learn from the bad things. They've used their critical thinking in what can I learn from this situation that makes me better, and always looking for new opportunities. It is their attitude about longevity that is so remarkable to me. And I see Carol Burnett. She's starring in a program with Kristen Wiig from Saturday Night Live. Dick Van Dyke he just got done producing a variety show at age 98, but at 99, he's now going out into the United States and talking about his life, because his life has been a remarkable, joyful time. And I look at my mom. She's always looking at what she's going to be doing next week, what she's going to be doing next year, how she's going to still be traveling, coming out here to Wyoming to see us. She never stops. She never stops giving. And to me, one of the thing that I love about my mom is that she's such a giving person. She's always trying to volunteer for something that not a lot of 93-year-old women would be volunteering
Doesn't she cook for the soup kitchen in her local?
She cooks for a soup kitchen on Fridays. She reads with elementary school children. She loves making blankets, crochets them for new moms up at the hospital. She's active in her community.
Active.
She's active in the school board. Talks a lot of politics. Sometimes she doesn't like that part. But she's always looking forward to how she can help her fellow man. End of story. She's a great example of volunteerism. And volunteerism itself increases longevity by 12%. In other words, staying busy, giving of yourself, and being positive in that specific process.
So if I can, Clint Eastwood's 95, he's still producing. George Bird's made 101. I think Kirk Douglas was over 100. Bob Hope was over 100. They all stayed busy. Every one of them stayed busy. I can tell you a story, though, of a man that I knew. In fact, I've known two men like this who did not want to grow old, like you have a choice. They didn't like the gray hair. They didn't like the wrinkles. They didn't embrace this stage of their life. I think what's interesting is we get caught in the past stage of our life when we were young and it was easy, and we don't learn how to adapt into the next stage of our life as we learn to do longevity. So, for example, when I used to run, and I mean, you've helped me a ton because this camera is placed inside our Pilates studio in our house. Sharon is a phenomenal Pilates instructor and works out sometimes 4 and 5 times a day with her clients. But I can remember getting up and just running, just flat running and not having to stretch or do anything. And now, if I don't stretch, I'm 1,000 days away from 70. If I don't stretch, I know about it. And when I start to get sore, I start to stretch. So instead of being mad about it, instead of being upset about it, I've learned to adapt to it.
Or
So let me,
stopping it, because most people just stop moving
yeah,
because something hurts.
no, you can't do that. You have to, you can't speak to the pain and you have to keep moving through the pain. That's something you and I both do. In fact, I do it too much. It's not good.
But
Anyway,
our point is you got to take a Bob Newhart point of view, and that would be stop it. You have to stop speaking to age. You have to embrace it. You have to look forward, look to the next day. And we asked two specific questions at the beginning of this podcast. The first one is, do you know a 90 or 100-year-old that's really productive and healthy? And we also told you they had a secret. Their secret was a can-do attitude, and not just I can do it. They're consistent with their mind thought about that they can do it. Because the biggest thing that I see in the fitness world, in the mental health world, and even the emotional and social development world is that we go by a program and we say that program doesn't work, but what ultimately happens is that we're inconsistent with the program. So if we learn to stay consistent in a positive nature, it makes all the difference in the
so let's
world.
stop there. How do you learn to stay consistent? So here's how you learn to stay consistent, in my opinion. You don't have an option. There's no option. You just have to do it. So as a pastor, I see people who stagnate spiritually. I see people who stagnate mentally. And I also see people who obviously stagnate physically. And you can see it whenever they walk in. You can see the concern on their face, fear. You can see the concern in their life. It's like they don't have control of their life at any point.
If you speak to pain, pain's going to stay in your back pocket. If you speak to depression, depression's going to stay. And speaking to the positives in life and the can-do areas in life and being consistent with that is the secret, is the key. And the next question we asked you is, do you believe longevity is a part of your future? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You just need to find a program that works with you if it's in the physical realm, or you need to find the right guidance if it's in the mental or the emotional or social area of your life. And you got to be consistent with it.
Yeah.
You got to find the hope that awaits you. And you have to stop talking to the negative pieces of your life. You have to stop it.
Joe Dispenza talks about mindfulness and mindlessness. To me, mindfulness is looking into the future, how you're going to control circumstances and situations as much as you're able to. And mindlessness is just being on remote control, looking at the past. Can't do that. You have to, you have to make a determination like these 5 people did. Because of my uncle, it's a determination to keep moving. Jack LaLanne had a determination to keep inventing. Dick Van Dyke and Carol Burnett had a determination to keep working, and her mother has a determination to keep helping. So you can see all these put together. I just read someone who said that if you have a positive attitude, you'll extend your life by 11 to 15%, which could be in some cases 10 or 15 years. Let's wrap it up with this. Talk about the man who told you, what would you do in the last 10 years of your life? What do you want to be?
He's a longevity scientist, Dr. Peter Alias. I believe that's his last name. Sorry, Peter. But he says, what if you have 5 or 10 years left? That's all you have. What kind of goals would you set for yourself? And then so I had to think of myself. Well, I want to travel and I want him by my side. So we staying healthy was a huge piece of this. staying mentally healthy, staying spiritually healthy. I want to still be able to get on the floor with my grandchildren. I want to play with them. And I want to be able to, first and foremost, travel, just because I have kids all over the United States, to go and see them. I still want to exercise. I still want to volunteer. I have so many things. My list is really long. But the point is, if you had a certain amount of years to live, what kind of goals would you set that would make your life better tomorrow?
What if somebody just decided they're going to live? Because I heard an evangelist friend that I liked. He said, "I'm going to live to be this age." And I'll be doggone, he did. He lived to be that age. So if you had
He
another 20,
spoke to it.
you spoke to it. If you had another 20 years, another 25 years, another whatever, how would you reshape your life? How would you re-engineer? How would you reinvent? How would you create longevity? So what are we going to speak about next week?
Ownership.
Ownership. What does that mean? Like buying cars and houses and stuff?
Well, not necessarily.
So
It's
what would it
about
be?
taking ownership of your own life, defining you, defining what you want to do and what you want to be, as opposed to somebody else defining
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. So have a good week. We will see you next week. Like and subscribe. Thank you.